American Football Stories is brought to you by Coach Paint. Coach Paint is a great tool that allows us to add graphics to player highlight clips similar to the graphics you see on TV. Coach Paint offers the ability to clearly tellustrate video while increasing retention of information in a shorter amount of time. Up your game with Coach Paint today.
What time is it? Game time! It's gonna be special. They gonna talk about this forever.
Welcome to American Football Stories.
Puts his head down, crashes and spins, and dives. Touchdown!
Bringing together the many perspectives that make up college football in the NFL.
Football is one of the greatest sports ever invented.
From players and coaches.
Believe, baby, believe, baby.
Hey, we playing to win right here, fellas.
To the front office and scouts.
The public is finally beginning to catch up, but they don't even know half the truth.
Us against the world, let's get it.
Your hosts, Robert Parker and Nick Knudsen, bring you American Football Stories.
Welcome to the American Football Stories podcast brought to you by Coach Paint. My name is Nick Knudsen. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Robert Parker. Today, July 21st, 2021, and we will be discussing name, image, and likeness. We are by no means experts at this. I don't know if anyone is yet. People can pretend to be, but there's a lot of moving pieces to this right now. We're going to talk a little bit about what we see, some of the ramifications from it, and maybe some of the ups and downs where the inconsistencies with past rulings and how things are being dealt with now. But Rob, I know this is a subject that's I look at this subject, I'm kind of like, man, there's just so much to go over. But you're the dude who went to law school, so you're all in on this subject.
Yeah, you're right about that, Nick. I'm dialed in. You know, I actually have like a tracker kind of set up to kind of see, you know, the new deals that's being pumped out daily. And it's definitely a couple that's caught my eye, you know, from an individual perspective and also from a team perspective. We're definitely going to dive in those later in the pod. But once again, this is a topic that I'm all in, you know, name, image, and likeness. Depending on what side of the spectrum you're on, whether you are for it or against it, you have to tip your hats off to the NCAA for doing this for the student athletes. I know I have a soft spot for the student athletes out there. You know, we're big Florida fans. I think we actually throw that out there a lot on this pod. And Tim Tebow, for example, man, just thinking about, you know, having the name, image, and likeness in the Tim Tebow era, what that would have did for, you know, not only the surrounding community in Gainesville, but just, you know, just for the college landscape as a whole. So we're finally getting to see that. So, so we're just going to talk about a lot of topics in that regards tonight.
I guess we're name, image, and likeness. I on paper, I love it. I think that it's about time that players should be able to make some money off of a platform that the schools are definitely providing, but these players help make that platform as well. And, you know, if you have a big player, someone like Tim Tebow is transcendent, but how many Tim Tebows are there? I think that we talk about the big names, Tim Tebow, we'll talk about the Fab Five, SMU, like those type of scandals in the past. But how many people are really worth their salt? Like, I mean, let's name the Florida Gator quarterbacks for the last decade. Any one of those jumping out? You signing with your business, you using your marketing dollars on any of the quarterbacks from the last decade outside of maybe Kyle Trask?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think, you know, from a post Tim Tebow era, if I'm a guy that wants to sign a Florida quarterback, I mean, Kyle Trask is probably the only one that I would sign to a deal in the name, image, and likeness era just because of his performance on the field.
There's no doubt there's top tier of players that are going to benefit from this. But if you're a mid-level guy, you're a backup tight end or something, I don't know how much different your life's going to be as just a regular scholarship athlete. But who knows? We've also seen weird cases. I don't know if you recall the UCF punter a few years ago who started the YouTube channel, correct?
Yep.
And they forced them to basically decide between playing football and doing the YouTube channel, which was highly successful in making money. And as we are trying to do right now, make a little money off of YouTube, we know that's extremely difficult. So if you're accomplishing that, you probably don't want to give that up. And why should he give up a YouTube channel? There's so for that purpose, I like that we're kind of getting out of the weeds with these silly things, where why does the NCAA need to go over all this stuff? And we can change a little bit. I think, to me, the pretense of it's 1923 and the All-Americans coming down the field, like we're not this whole perfect Americana, like Princeton is like Princeton, Harvard, Yale, Ivy League college stuff. It's all a facade with college football. It's a part of the tradition. It's a part of the legacy of the game, but it hasn't been like that for a long, long time. So so people want to romanticize college football, but Rob, when's the last time college football actually looked like that version of college football, with the student athletes, where the student comes first?
I tell you what, I can't remember any period in my lifetime, and
Right.
And with that being said, you see the large, contracts that these coaches are signing. You're seeing the large contracts that the assistant coaches are signing, and you see all the money that these, universities are generating from a revenue standpoint, and more so because of the athletes. So I just like you said, the whole amateurism, ploy that the NCAA has used, over the course of, college football is kind of went out the window, at least in my opinion, the last, 15 years. It's just so much money has been generated, and it's a shame that, these college athletes that actually help generate the revenue can't, take a little bit money from that. So I just applaud the NCAA for actually, doing this. And I know it's a lot of kinks in courts that has to be worked out in between, but this is definitely a step in the right direction, in my opinion.
Just to be clear, and this is where I think I get a little confused with this too. You're not talking about NCAA athletes getting a slice of the school's pie.
Yep.
You're talking about them being able to go out and make their own. So basically,
yep.
we're allowing you to be entrepreneurs. If you want to go make a local Ford dealer commercial, go have at it, right? I saw some of the regulations they put out where, you shouldn't pursue these types of things at the cost of going to class, let's say, or going to practice. You should still prioritize your student athlete part of your persona, and I think that's going to be extremely difficult to manage, Rob.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. But just on the flip side of that, we always talk about, the athletes who actually go on to play at the next level. And we talk about, their financial situation and how bad of, financial planners they are, how, they go bankrupt or they go broke. We've seen the 30 for 30.
Try to take care of everyone they know.
Yeah. So I think, with this name, image, and likeness is actually going to come a little bit of maturity level for these athletes to know how to kind of be an entrepreneur, to kind of know how to manage their money moving forward. So I think in that respect, I think I like it for the student athlete as well.
That's a good point. I didn't think about it that way. That's a good perspective there. Let's dive into the significance of the Supreme Court decision, which came down at the end of June, really in anticipation of some of these state laws going into effect on July 1st this year. I was struck by a quote from Justice Brett Kavanaugh. He wrote, "Nowhere else in America can businesses get away with agreeing to not pay their workers a fair market rate on the theory that their product is defined by not paying their workers in a fair market rate." And he says, and under ordinary principles of the antitrust law, it's not evident why college sports should be any different. The NCAA is not above the law. I'm sorry for laughing in the middle of that, but he just pretty much straight up called out the entire model of the NCAA and said, you're not above the law. And basically one paragraph, Justice Kavanaugh completely destroyed the NCAA.
Yeah, I mean, if you kind of look at that business model that the NCAA has been doing for years and years, it's been one of the best business models out there. You know, you're generating all this revenue, but you're not really paying your employees. I know they're not employees; they're more so student athletes. But just like you said, that quote kind of sums it up perfect. And hopefully with the name, image, and likeness and the Supreme Court decision, we're moving in the right direction. And just looking at the NI deals that these student athletes have been signing recently, I think they're doing pretty good for themselves.
Right. And the thing that's interesting with some of those deals, let's go over some of these deals that you've seen to this point here. What's some that have stood out to you? I know in the SEC media days today, Nick Saban commented that his quarterback, who's not yet started a game at Alabama, has already made $1 million thanks to NIL. Close to seven figures is what he said, thanks to NIL. And Rob, the immediate reaction I had to that was that sounds like he's underpaid for being the Alabama quarterback. I feel like previous Alabama quarterbacks have made much more.
Yeah, but that just goes to show you the brand these athletes have. You have a quarterback who's projected, or Nick Saban said he allegedly made a certain amount before he even stepped on the field. That's the Alabama brand. That's one of the bonuses you get by playing with Alabama. But getting to Alabama, you're probably one of the top players in the nation at your position. So I think that's a fair assessment of market value for the quarterback position. But just going back to your question, one of my favorite NI deals that I've seen so far is the Arkansas receiver Trey Knox inking a deal with PetSmart for his dog. He has a actual husky, so I really love the PetSmart deal. I'm a big dog guy, so that was one of my favorites so far.
Didn't the offensive line at Arkansas sign with a barbecue chain, if I'm not mistaken?
Yep.
That's another fantastic one. I mean, another one too. We saw the entire University of Miami team signed a deal with who exactly?
Cut.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't have to know everything, bro.
Yeah. I know what deal you're talking about, but I don't know who they signed it through. Yeah.
So okay. 3, 2, 1, go. And another deal that we want to look at too, the entire University of Miami team signed a deal. It's escaping me exactly who they signed it with, but it's saying each player is going to get a cut of this deal. Like, so you're not just seeing it as individuals, you're seeing that as a group come together to negotiate some deals, which is also another interesting tactic and a way to, you've seen some of these players. Speaking of Miami, I believe Derek King was saying he wants to share in what he's getting with people. I believe I saw him say that. It's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out. I think we're going to be in the Wild West for a few years. But we talk about a lot of the positives with NIL and the fact that the NCAA is finally, getting away from this archaic vision of itself. And let's be real. The NCAA just takes itself too seriously. All right. If we're all pretending like college football players aren't getting paid right now, who are we kidding? I'm not saying the second string centers collecting a nice fat check from boosters, but I am saying that big time recruits are probably collecting something at some point, and that big time players on campus are probably getting nice little handshakes here and there. I think that probably happens. I don't have evidence. I don't know. I just have a brain. Just putting 2 and 2 together on things.
Well, we've seen that happen, throughout the course of, the history of the NCAA. We've had examples of, certain individual players getting, a piece of the pie from boosters and from, fan bases out there. Perfect example, the SMU team with Eric Dickerson. We saw that the Pony Express 30 for 30. So we've seen, little cases here and there where, you've seen these high school recruits getting a little bit added incentive because they're, the best recruits in their state or best recruits in the nation. One of the topics that we're going to talk about is the Reggie Bush, and this is a great way to kind of segue into that conversation. We saw the whole Reggie Bush saga unfold in front of us. Me personally, I don't think that held bearing on the way Reggie Bush played on the field. He just got an extra incentive for being Reggie Bush
Right.
and being a top tier recruit.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah. So, one of the things right now where we see the NIL transition into name, image, and likeness, it was a big ploy to get Reggie Bush his Heisman Trophy back, which I think the NCAA should never took away from him in the first place. But that's just the way the NCAA roll.
Yeah, the NCAA with their Soviet Union style punishments, like we're going to rewrite the history books. Like, yeah, Joe Paterno loses all these games. These games are off his win total. Bobby Bowden loses games for an academic scandal. Like, those are always the dumbest punishment. Oh, you got to take down your banners. You can't acknowledge those years. Yeah, are you going to refund me the money I paid to go to a ticket that year to that game? If I saw one of those teams, you're gonna pay me back? No, you're not. Okay, you still got my money. Like, the game existed. Reggie Bush won the damn Heisman. Like, look. I can understand a situation where you have a situation like with O.J. Simpson, where it's highly controversial and it's almost like you want to disassociate from the person in some way. Aaron Hernandez lost his All-American brick at the University of Florida. I'm fairly certain. There's just things that there are situations. I'm not saying there's never a situation where maybe an entity doesn't want to be associated with an individual anymore. That's fine. But that was a crazy extreme punishment in my mind. And with the Reggie Bush Heisman argument, which now there's talks that he's going to get it back, right? You look at a story like you talked about Pony Express. What about the tattoo gate at Ohio State that really essentially was the beginning of the end for Jim Tressel at Ohio State? Careers were lost over this. Charlie Pell at the University of Florida, right? Like, I mean, we saw all types of things that silly rules for the NCAA that have ruined lives and careers over the years that can't be recovered to some extent. But I'll give you a good example with Florida. I'm sorry we keep bringing up Florida. That's just a school that we follow the closest and happen to know pretty well. But in 1984, the Gators won their first ever SEC title. First ever. They had been in the league since 1933, 51 years to win it. They end up getting that title stripped by a vote with the NCAA or with the SEC within the league, and it was vacated. Currently, nobody, unlike in previous year, in 1990, Florida won, but because they're ineligible because they had sanctions on them for another issue in the late 80s, they weren't eligible to win the league title. So even though they had the best record, they weren't eligible to win. They awarded it to someone else. 1984, the SEC title still stands vacated. Like, there's no winner in 1984 in the SEC. The Gators won it, but it just says vacated under title. Are you telling me that the University of Florida, it was the only SEC school in the 1980s to have any type of issues with the NCAA, that they're getting their title vacated? We have, like, how many of these conversations are we going to go revisit, Rob? Because I think there's a lot of conversations to have. And I mean, I know we're living at a time in history where, I mean, we're arguing about what statues should be up and what should, we're talking about history a lot and what significance different things carries. But we talk a lot about in one sense of what we need to take away. But in the NCAA sense, it's almost like what we need back, right? I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting in contrast to what's going on in different parts of society too when you talk about this topic.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that, Nick. And just like you brought up, you talk about Tattoo Gate with Ohio State players. If you fast forward until this season, they probably could get tattoo endorsements. They probably could, get a percentage by showing off those tattoos right now. So it just goes to show you that the NCAA was so far behind in regards to, this whole name, image, and likeness. We saw it on the basketball level with Ed O'Bannon. We saw he was one of the guys who
really the one that started a lot of this, right?
Spearhead a lot of this stuff. And you mentioned the kicker from UCF. That was another transcendent time where you just say, hey, I want to keep my YouTube channel. I want to profit off my name, image, and likeness. I don't want to go to school. If I have to give away my YouTube channel, so we've seen this over the course of years and years and years. And right now it just really seems like, everything is coming to the forefront. But you had a good, you said something good earlier with with it being the Wild Wild West. And I think, you know, it's a lot of positive that's come out of the name, image, and likeness. But it's a lot of negatives. You got to look at, you know, agents that's out there trying to represent the athletes. You know, you don't want to get into a bad deal.
Right.
I know Barstools actually came up recently with the whole NIL in regards to, do you want to do a endorsement deal with Barstool, knowing that they have a sports book in regards to sports gambling? So it's just a lot of nuanced things that we're still young to. We don't know
gambling,
about.
talk about something that's also gaining wider acceptance as we go, where many states are legalizing sports gambling, which we're also, I feel like, pretty behind on overall. That's one that you could probably just legalize. I mean, some of these rules are a little bit archaic, but you look at it in a different way. Like, I really think we're going to have to go back and relitigate some of this stuff. I mean, like, should Reggie Bush be kept from his Heisman Trophy forever? No, it's ridiculous. The Tattoo Gate guys, if we give them, like, I don't know how I feel about that one, because they knew what they were doing at the time. Like, where do you come down with when someone says, look, if you broke the rule when it was the rule, it's still breaking the rules, right? Even if it's okay today, it wasn't okay then. Like, where do you come down? You know, it's not like you still played by, you agreed to the system, right? When Terrell Pryor was in school, there were certain things you could and could not do, and he knew what those were. And whether or not it's right or not, that's a different discussion. You could just, if you want to be like just very literal about it, and say he knew what he was doing when he sold his memorabilia, right? Like, he knew that was not okay with the NCAA at the time, and he made that decision anyway. So I don't know if I want to look at it and rewrite history to a point where you're apologizing for an issue to, like, hey, Tattoo Gate guys, Boom Heron, we're so sorry that there was ever an issue there. But you can, I'm sorry, I'm beating around. You see how complicated this is. I'm like, I don't know exactly how to handle that in my head. I'm still trying to figure that out. Where do you look at that? I guess the question I have is, how do you look at a situation like that, where I just went on about how Bush deserves his Heisman back, the Gators should get that 84 title back from the SEC, but the Tattoo Gate guys, maybe they get recognition back and they get their games restored and all that. But I mean, how should we as fans feel toward that? Like, should we be like, oh, you guys finally got that justice you deserve? Or is it more like, nah, you still broke the rules when you did it, dude? Like, you might be off on it now. The laws may have changed, but you still did what you did.
Yeah, and I think that's the tricky part in all of this discussion that we're having right now, because you have, you have people on both sides of the fence. You have those people who say, hey, you broke the rules. I don't care. The rules were the rules at that particular time. And then you have, the other group of people saying, hey, well, the rules were stupid then. And, now they actually, work out in favor for the student athletes. So we can go back and just say, hey, like, those rules shouldn't be there, and they was never there. So we're welcoming you guys back in the graces of the university, because, it was a stupid rule. Another example, we've seen countless of times, AJ Green, we saw him get suspended for, selling his jersey right? After a game and everything like that. So I know now, in regards to the NIL, you can't sell team memorabilia. So that's one of the things that you can't do.
Wild West, man. Didn't know that. That's quite a technicality.
Yeah. So
good luck enforcing that, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know that is one of the caveats in there. And
I didn't sell it, but I gave it to my brother, and my brother sold it.
Sold it. Yep. So
there's no way to enforce that.
Yeah, it's definitely a tricky topic and a tricky subject that we're talking about from an NIL standpoint. But just from an overall arching standpoint, I really think that this is a transcendent thing that the NCAA is doing. They're just making so much money with these TV deals. They're making so much money with the sponsorships.
1985 where people are losing money on college athletics anymore.
Yeah.
Like these conferences are beyond. I mean, what are they making? Like the Big Ten's making like 50 million a year plus. Like Northwestern is an extremely rich athletic. Their football program is very, very wealthy. It's not like it was in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, you have one of the major universities in Notre Dame. They don't want to join a conference because they have TV money coming in,
Yeah.
and they don't want to share that revenue. So with that being said, it's only right that those
plenty to
Notre
go
Dame
around.
players to get a little bit money in their pockets from their name, image, and likeness.
Wait. But again, we just got confused again in real time here. We're not talking about the players getting a slice of that pie, though.
Yeah,
You're just making the point that in general that there's so much money in college sports
in
that
general.
there's no excuse to hold kids back from doing what they can do because those TV deals are giving them platforms where they're getting that type of exposure. But it has nothing to do with the fact that Northwestern made $50 million and they're paying the kids part of that, right?
Yeah.
That's a whole other conversation in itself. Should the players get piece of that pie? Here's the other thing, Rob. Another law that a lot of people don't seem to consider when we talk about this. I hear it come up once in a while, but I think the average fan doesn't know a lot about it. But what about Title IX, which basically says you can't give to a male athletic program, which you don't give to a female? You got to give, if you give one to a male program, you got to give one to a female program. And it's got to be even split down the middle. And obviously, I don't fully understand that because if anyone tells me that the women's softball team at every school gets the type of investment that the football program does, I don't believe that for a second. So I don't think that has to do with investment. I think it has to do with scholarships only. Am I correct in that?
Yeah.
You know this stuff better than me.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we're, in regards to the Title IX, we're looking at it. It doesn't have to be equivalent of everything, but it has to be similar in such situations. So you don't have to have the same facilities to a certain extent, but you can't have, you got weight benches in the men's, weight room. You can't have not weight benches in the women's, weight room. So we kind of saw this with the NCAA bubble. This kind of, arose during the NCAA, the bubble with the women's. That was a big scandal in regards to, not having the same
women's basketball tournament,
the basketball tournament, as the women's not having the same, training facilities and the, workout equipment that the men's had. So I think that's where Title IX comes in that regards.
So in terms of NIL, though, is Title IX exempt?
That's another thing that we're working through.
Is it like, so do I as a school, is NIL completely managed on the individual level by the individual athletes, or does the school have some say over it? Because another thing too is, if you're a Nike school, you probably can't have a kid going out rocking Adidas, right? Or if you're a Coca-Cola school, you probably can't have a guy on Alabama's probably not going to have a player holding a Pepsi can anytime soon, right?
Yeah.
So the school does have some say over this stuff, right?
Yeah. The school and the university does have a say over, certain things. But I just going back and just harping on the overarching landscape, even if the university has some say, at least the student athlete can branch off from an independent standpoint and entrepreneurial standpoint and kind of make some money and put some money in their pockets.
Right. And really, I think what we're going to end up seeing is not so much that a ton of college athletes are going to finally be able to make money. It's that there's probably going to be, give me a percentage, Rob. What percentage of money are going to make any type of significant income from this?
I say anywhere from 10 to 15%. I know.
Is that football players?
Football.
You're saying that?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So overall in the college athlete landscape, you're thinking like 1 to 3%, maybe.
Yeah.
If that.
Yeah.
Right. So football players, you're thinking maybe 10 to 15%. I'm with you. Under 20 for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I know we've seen, the logos that's came out among the top quarterbacks. Spencer Rattler actually came out with the logo, De'Aaron King. Great logos, by the way. I love this. I love the Spencer Rattler logo and the De'Aaron King logo. So we're going to see these type of, deals and, endorsements coming out. But I think they're only going to garner the attention of the top tier athletes. So
when are we going to see the top high school quarterback in the country say, I'm going to sell a picture of me in a Texas jersey, a picture of me on a t-shirt of me with USC, and a T-shirt of me with Miami, and whatever fan base buys the most, that's where I'm committing. What are we going to see that coming up?
I hey, we
Are-
don't
is
know.
the new hat on the table going to be an
It's
auction?
yeah, it possibly could be. We're really working in the murky waters right now. So I don't think everyone has all the answers. We're just kind of looking at this, from the point of the student athlete. So I think we could see that. I wouldn't rule it out. And I think that was, a lot of the coaches within the landscape talked about that. And I think that's one of the things it's skeptical. You really don't want these student athletes saying, "Hey, I want to go to one university because I know I can get more endorsements with that university versus the other university." So more so of recruiting leverage. So I think that's why you kind of see all the states enacted, the name, image, and likeness law to kind of even the playing field, because Florida was one of the first states to do it. So I mean, I know you had a lot of those high school athletes in the state of Florida say, "Hey, I'm not leaving the state if I can make some extra money on the side if I stay in the state of Florida and play ball here." And that's where you kind of see the other states kind of turning the course and creating legislation and everything to kind of enact the name, image, and likeness for those universities in those particular states. So I think it's murky waters that we're living in, but I love to see the NCAA kind of thinking outside the box for a change and not trying to, keep all the dollars and cents for themselves.
Are they though? Because didn't they just get slapped down the court over there? Is this the NCAA thinking outside the box, or is this the NCAA giving into societal pressure and a Supreme Court justice that just told them they're not above the law?
Yeah, I tell you what, it's
Don't give them
definitely
too much credit, Rob.
yeah, it's definitely more the latter than the former, but
Yeah,
it took a lot of pressure for the NCAA to
you're a
kind of
nice
give
guy.
in. So I don't want to rip the NCAA like everyone else does. But once again, they societal pressures, just like you mentioned, Nick. And this was a long time coming, and I think the NCAA knew that a day was going to come like this. And it kind of seems like they're giving in, they cave in for it, and it definitely benefits the student athlete moving forward. So I'm definitely excited about that.
So a couple points I want to get to. One, Greg Sankey at his opening presser for the SEC Media Days, SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey said basically started pushing for the fact that NIL, this whole doing it on state levels is what's really super confusing, and he wants to see something at the federal level. Do you see that coming at some point? And that sounds like something to me. I heard that and I go, well, we're talking about federal government. That sounds like something the NCAA should handle. But then on the other hand, you have Mark Emmert out here, the president of the NCAA, saying he thinks that college sports, the future of college sports, is kind of heading in a different direction to where like he sees it becoming more like conference by conference. And we saw that during the COVID year, how little power the NCAA actually has. I mean, they have power over to cancel a basketball tournament or whatever, but they don't have power to tell the SEC they're not playing football. Or the Big Ten could say we're not playing football, and the SEC goes, well, we are. Like we saw that where the true power lies, and it's in those conference commissioners' offices. Rob, what do you think about that dilemma going on right now?
Yeah, I think moving forward, it's gonna have to be, something, substantiated for everyone, not, having all these different laws on a state level, from different states and different universities that, they can kind of do their own thing. I think it has to be something, tangible, where whether it's on a federal level, whether it's on a conference level, something that can overarch everyone instead of having everyone on an individual playing field. So I think we're definitely going to see something like that down the line. But I think it's definitely going to be more conference based than anything. So we're probably going to see that coming in the next couple of years when everything kind of clear the way for this particular year, the first year of the NIL.
Yeah, and let's be real too. It is easy to rip the NCAA. They were created with a purpose. I feel like they serve their purpose, and that there's probably a better way to do it at this point, or the NCAA needs to take some type of different role at some point. I'm not saying to get rid of the NCAA by any means. Like you could still, there still needs to be something, some type of apparatus that functions like that. But maybe they don't have to be the police all the time. They don't have to. They don't have to be the cops on everything. And you figure out a way to make things work a different way on that regard. Maybe the conferences agree to their own rules and police it their own way too. So I don't know. Again, Rob, usually with these episodes, we like to inform our audience. We like to try to teach people things, but the reason this is more walking through. I think I'm going to title this "Trying to Understand Name, Image, and Likeness," because that's exactly what this has been. I still there's no step one, step two, step three. This is not a simple topic here, and it's going to be ever evolving, and it's going to look different, probably year by year for a while.
Yeah, it really is. And I tell you what, we're probably going to gain a little bit more insight as it get closer to the season. But I'm just so excited to see how it's going to play out during the season and see if you're going to have, players striking up more endorsement deals on the side because of their play. Take Emory Jones, say he has a big game week 1. Do Emory Jones get more endorsement deals because he had a big game?
Is he
in
pulling
week
up a
one?
shirt when he scores a touchdown with the logo on
So
it?
I think we're going to see how this plays out in this inaugural year of the NIL. But just like you said, this is it's an ever evolving, ever changing topic that we're talking about on this particular episode. And we would like to inform our audience and everyone, but we're walking it through just like they are. But
Right.
It has been some endorsement deals that's been struck up so far that I have definitely loved. I know Spencer Rattler has struck up the endorsement deal with a fast food chain out there. Sam Howell was actually talking to a fast food chain. So we're seeing these local car dealerships.
Rattler did Cane's
Yep.
Chicken.
Yep.
Who's Hal talking to?
I think Howell was talking to Bojangles, if I'm not mistaken, which is another fast food restaurant out there.
Bojangles, big in North Carolina.
Big down south, South Carolina, North Carolina. So I love to see it. I love to see it. And every single day it's a new endorsement deal that's being struck up. Social media, we've seen social media being a big indicator of where these endorsement deals lies with the followers and everything that these student athletes have. So I think we're just going to see more deals being struck up. Maybe not so much for big amounts of money, but we definitely going to see more endorsement deals being struck up. At least when we get closer to the season and probably in the season as well.
Well, I'm exhausted just talking about all this, man. This is so much to digest. It's a hell of a lot more fun to talk about than all the COVID stuff, though. I'll say that. So it's super interesting. There's a lot of good discussions that are going to come from it. And at the end of the day, as critical as you could be, some people are calling it the death of college sports. College sports wasn't what it was in 1960. It wasn't what it was like. It's constantly evolving. It's an evolution, folks. It's not college sports isn't going anywhere. It's going to evolve. There's going to be, I mean, hell, Rob, maybe at some point you could even get a group of schools that go the route. At some point the Ivy League schools decided, look, we're not going to keep up with the Ohio States and Michigans of the world in the football field here. Like we're here to be Ivy League schools, not football factories, and they kind of pulled back, right? So maybe that will be the future of college athletics, that some of these schools, the Ohio States, the Alabamas, and all them, they're going to keep running this direction. And maybe some other schools are going to be like, you know what, we just want to follow the old model. And there could be like a split at some point in that regard. And that could be the new FCS versus FBS type of thing, or the playoff versus non-playoff schools or something like that. You never know. That's not that crazy of a scenario to think of, in my opinion. However, I think the money's too good in that everybody who's on the ride right now wants to stay on that ride. And there's other schools that still want to get on that ride. So the money's good. The sport is growing. And what a time to be alive in college football, Rob.
Yeah, you're right about that. What a time to be alive if you're a student athlete in college, not only football, but just college sports in general. So hopefully, these student athletes have someone in their ear that they can really depend on and not let them steer them in the wrong way. I know Open Doors is a platform that has been created from, some former Nebraska players that's kind of, have the landscape of, contacting athletes and setting up endorsement deals on the side, whether it's, you know, showing up and, signing autographs, whether it's, showing up to talk on a podcast and stuff like that. So I think we're going to see different platforms come out, in the next couple of years that's going to actually accelerate the name, image, and likeness moving forward.
Good luck to all the successful athletes of just beating back all your dirtbag relatives that are going to try to cash in on the name. Like Emory Jones has an uncle he can't stand, or let's say Spencer Rattler has an uncle he can't stand, who comes out of the woodwork and is like, "Oh, I'm gonna make these shirts." Maybe he sells Spencer Rattler shirts anyway. Who knows? Without his permission,
Yeah.
But there's gonna be a lot of weird cases like that. Dirtbag relatives who are in it to steal money. It's gonna be a lot of difficult situations, man. A lot of extra distraction for these college kids too. That I'm sorry, I know they're college kids. I know they're big time, and we kind of did the student athlete things, making fun of it earlier. The term student athlete, where it's not really been the case for a long time, but I will say, like, it is going to add a layer of difficulty where you're still 18 to 21, and you're probably more than likely statistically, as much as like you're not a fully developed person yet. You're still learning a lot at that age. And, you know, I, it's going to be tough. There might be some success stories, but there's definitely going to be there's going to be some ugly ones too.
Yeah,
So
and I'm right there with you. I think we're going to see both sides of the spectrum. Hopefully, we see more good stories come out of this than not so good stories. But that's one thing that we're just going to have to follow moving forward, especially since this is the inaugural year of the NIL going down, and we will probably won't get a great baseline on all of this even after the season is finished. It's going to take some time for everything to kind of click for everyone in regards to this particular topic. So I'm just here enjoying the ride, and I know you are, Nick. It's a complicated topic, but it's definitely a topic that's going to evolve over time, and it's going to come out great. It's going to be some great talking points, some great material that's coming out of this. But just like you said earlier, hopefully it's more positive stories that come out of this for the student athlete than not so positive stories.
that's why I've been hesitant to dive in, because everything we're doing is kind of just speculation right now. It's not my favorite type of topic to cover, because a lot of speculating and everything, where I look at it and I want to be a little more definitive with what I'm putting out there and everything. And but I'll tell you, I mean, this is the type of tone that this topic deserves right now, where if you act like you're totally certain about NIL, then you're just lying to yourself, because there's nothing certain about it right now, other than it's probably going to continue to grow, and we're going to hear a lot of different stories from it. But I certainly am glad. I am, at the end of the day, is it a thumbs up or a thumbs down for me? Overall, it's a thumbs up. It's progress. And that's where I think if you keep the big picture of maybe history, the road's a little bumpy on the way to something good. If you keep that type of perspective, I think that I think they'll get there. And maybe NIL needs some hard and fast rules too, where you can do this, but you can't do that, and you can do, and then you're right back to the NCAA.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. Can you see? We can circle back. We can just keep going in circles on this whole thing. So it's a super complicated conversation, but I'm glad that some college kids can get some cash in their pockets at the end of the day. I'm going to keep it simple like that. How about that?
Yeah, and I tell you what, I will be supporting, some of these college kids. I know, just like you said, Spencer Rattler, De'Aaron Keens came out with the logos and came out with a little bit of merchandise and T-shirts. So I would definitely be supporting some of these student athletes in that regard. And I know, you actually have some of the student athletes say they're going to try to give, money to charities and stuff like that. So
That's great.
that's awesome right there. So
Yep.
anytime you can kind of have someone giving back to the community, you can kind of help and facilitate that. I'm all for that. So hats off to, those student athletes who are definitely giving back to charity from their, money that they're making on their side endorsement deals and everything like that. So hats off to those guys.
So you said there's the good. And for those of you decrying this as the death of college sports, chill out. Chill out. It's not the death of college sports. College sports will look a little different. But if you think college sports looks like it did in 1985 today, I mean, it doesn't. College sports has already evolved. It continues to evolve, especially college football continues to evolve. So just be along the ride. It's still going to be a lot of great football. It's going to be a good time. And we'll get there. We'll figure it out. So I don't think it's as bad as some people are making it out to be. I think there's more concerns than the people who are super excited about that are letting on. So I think I'm somewhere in the middle on this right now. And I'm just going to continue to reserve judgment and sit there and go, we'll see how it turns out. Seems like a good opportunity. We'll see how it goes. So, but if anything changes, we'll be sure to make another episode on this. I know Rob follows this stuff. You follow this closer than I do. Let's be real.
Yeah,
I read up on it, but you're the law nerd between us.
Yeah. I'm kind of, I'm in this pretty heavy, dude. Just like I said, I keep a tracker of NIL deals being done daily, just to kind of see the landscape of everything and see, what deals, a particular player is actually getting. So, you had Nick Saban come out during the SEC media days this week, and he was talking about his quarterback. So does, a quarterback from Hawaii gets that same, opportunity, or he's getting that opportunity because he's with the Alabama program. So I think we're going to see
Cole Brennan might have.
So I think we're going to see a lot of fluctuation when it comes to these particular deals, because, and that's one thing that I kind of want to look forward during the season. If we have, maybe you have Sam Howell, who doesn't have a particularly good season. Do people still reach out to Sam Howell for endorsements on the side because of the type of season he has?
Bojangles will still be there.
I think Bojangles will still be there. So if he was to take a deal with Bojangles, I think Bojangles will still be there.
The NFL draft will get scared, but Bojangles, we got you, Sam.
Those are the things, the little nuanced things that I'll be looking for, throughout the season and everything like that. So if you win the Heisman, do you get more piece of the pie from an endorsement standpoint? If you're
the bonus incentives.
So it's a lot of things that we don't know as of yet. That's definitely going to flush itself out over the course of the up and coming years. So I'm just along for the ride, and I'm just loving this journey. How everything is progressing and moving forward.
Craziness, man. You got anything else to add before we call it an episode?
The only thing I can say, Nick, is that we're definitely going to revisit this topic, probably countless of times throughout the year. And hopefully the next time we'll have a little bit more information and we can be more informative. But right now,
I think we did have plenty of information. I think it's a lot of it is up in the air right now.
Up in the air, yeah.
Like I said, I don't mean to imply that we didn't have information. I meant to imply that I like to be definitive. Like I'm trying to teach you something about the topic where I don't fully understand it right now. I'm having trouble understanding. It's something where, because it's not consistent. It's not consistent at the moment, and there are definitely issues with it right now. So that's all I meant by that. I'm kind of joking, being a little facetious. So all right, man. Well, hey, everyone, thank you for listening to this show. We appreciate you following the American Football Stories podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're trying to drive up those numbers. And, as always, we're on the Apple Podcast as well. And as always, thank you for listening, and we'll send it out to Rob.
Thank you for listening to American Football Stories podcast. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, American Football Stories. We are working to grow our network on YouTube, and we'd love to have you subscribe. You can find us also on Apple Podcasts, on Twitter, at American FB Story, and on our website, AmericanFootballStories.com. I am Robert Parker. My co-host is Nick Knudsen. This has been another episode of American Football Stories.